Hi everyone, welcome back to the Docker security series. So in this video, we are going to discuss about read-only containers and read-only containers and namespaces. Okay, so for the security reasons. Okay, so we should take care of these two concepts. Okay, so we will learn these two topics in this video. Okay, so first we will see how attackers, okay, how attackers like modify the files inside our containers. Okay, so then we will see why running containers with the root is very dangerous. Okay, we will see these two now. Okay, so let me go ahead and explain this, like, so what exactly this read only and why do we need to follow. Okay, so for example, you have an application, so that application is running inside the Docker container. So this particular application is running inside the Docker container, and everything is working perfectly. Okay, so everything is working fine actually. Okay, so like for example, imagine, so there is an hacker. Okay, there is an hacker. Okay, so who will got the access for this particular container shell. Okay, so he got the access, cell access. Okay, cell access for this container. Okay, so what he can do, so once he get the cell access for this container, what he can do, so he can do whatever you want to, right? So he can delete the files. Okay, he can delete the files and he can modify the files. Okay, he can modify the files, and he can modify the files, and he can install the malwares, like, so I can install the malwares. Okay, so you can install the malwares, and you can replace you can replace the you can replace um, the application configuration files. Okay, so like configurations, application binaries. Okay, application binaries, application binaries. Okay, so and so you can bypass the backdoors, right? Okay, so like say if it is any application related to bank, so we can replace the the place where the money need to be stored, or any confidential need to be data stored. Okay, so so here if he got this cell access, so it means your app become compromised, right? Okay, so your app become compromised. Okay, so because by default the Docker containers are isolated, right? So by default Docker containers are isolated. By default Docker containers are isolated, right? Okay, but the containers are isolated, but whatever the file system it is going to get, okay, in the container, so that file system will be writable access actually. By default it will get the writable access. Okay, so by default it will get the writable access. It will get the writable access. Okay, that means, okay, that means, so with this cell access, okay, with the cell access, they can change your application files. They can change the application files, right? It means by default the container is isolated, but the container file system is writable. It means if once this hacker got the access onto the cell, then he can change the application files, right? You can change the application files, right? This is what uh, this is what the issue is by default. Okay, that's what. Okay, that's what we should make sure that your applications, your container should be read only. Okay, once he if you make that container as read only, so even if this guy got cell access, he cannot do anything on top of that. He cannot delete it, he cannot modify it, he cannot install anything, he cannot delete any configuration files or binaries, he cannot bypass anything. Okay, so let me show you like so how it is going to be happen. Okay, let me show you how it is going to be happen. Like so for example, I'll go inside the container. Like so let me run -it, then I'm taking Ubuntu image. Okay, so bash. Okay, I'm just going inside the container, and if you use like let me um, welcome hacker. Okay, so I'm just giving this to file.txt. Okay, so let me see, you have created this particular file. You have created this particular file. You can see that data, like so what exactly this file contain, right? So everything is working. Okay, so this entire file system is writable. Okay, so you can do whatever you want, right? So it means okay, so once inside the container, okay, inside the container, okay, so inside the container we have the file system. Inside the file system we have app folder, and we have file.txt. Everything is there, right? We have file.txt, file.txt. Okay, so if this particular hacker get any access, right? Okay, he get any access, so he can do whatever he wanted to do. Okay, so any process, okay, whatever the process inside this particular container, it become a writable, right? Because by default, Jai Shri Ram, by default container is isolated, but file system will be writable by default. Writable by default. Okay, so for example, you are working on any banking application. Okay, you are working on any bank application. Okay, so you are banking like so you are using log4j, for example. Okay, so for payment related stuff you are using log4j, log4 shell, right? Okay, so now hacker got an access for this particular container. Okay, so now he can modify the files, right? So whatever the file is that particular container have related to payment. Okay, so like this payment service will send a money to somewhere, right? For example, somewhere there is, for example, consider there is a place where you can store the money, right? So this much money, this need to be stored on this specific account, right? So you will say those money. Okay, so like no source code will like here we are not changing anything on top of the source code, right? Source code will be the same, because the git code will be the git code will not be changed here, right? The git code will not be changed. It means the git has the source code, right? So only runtime environment information is changing. So container is a runtime instance which is running, the application is running inside it. Okay, so this is where your application is running, right? This is where your application is running, right? This is where your application is running. This is where your application is running, right? Okay, so here your source code is not changing. You are not, you like, nobody is changing this source code. Nobody is changing this source code, right? Nobody is changing your source code. Okay, so it is happening at the runtime. Okay, so only modification is happening at the runtime, right? So because this is storing in somewhere, but while this hacker got an access, okay, so while after hacker got this an access, so he changed that, where he changed to his location. Okay, so it is not happening at the source code, it is happening at the runtime. Only modification is happening at the runtime. So generally this people will called like a runtime tampering. Runtime tampering. People generally call runtime tampering. Okay, so hope you understand this. Okay, so what will be the solution? Okay, so whenever you create a container from any image, okay, so you have to make this container to be read only. Okay, the file system need to be, the file system need to be read only. Okay, so whatever the container is there, that container has the file system, right? That file system should be read only. Okay, that container should be read only. Okay, so let's see how we are going to make any container to be read only. Okay, so let me go to terminal. Okay, so let me exit from here. Okay, so let me run another container, docker run -it. Okay, ubuntu, okay, bash. So if I give this command, right, if I give this command, by default it will be a writable, the file system will be writable, right? So what you need to do, okay, so what you need to do, so you need to write hyphen read only, hyphen read only. So let me go inside the container. So let me create any file. Okay, let me create any file, or else I'll go with the same which we followed. Welcome. Okay, so I'm just creating file.txt here. Okay, file.txt. See, we got an error. Like, so if hacker got an access here, okay, so you cannot do anything. So because this file system we made as a read only. Okay, so he cannot do anything. Okay, so even if you use mkdir test directory, so still it is saying that it is read only. So if anybody come here and do any update, so it will be a read only file system. It is read only file system. Okay, it means we made this particular file system, we locked this particular file system, right? We have locked this first this particular file system with the help of this function, with the help of this function, right? Now he cannot do delete, modify any installations, configurations, binaries deletion, any bypass kind of operations. He cannot do anything, right? He cannot do anything, right? He cannot do anything on top of that, right? So this is how we must secure our file system with this particular function. So otherwise, if any hacker got an access for your cell, he can do whatever he want to do. Okay, so you might have some doubts, right? You might have some doubts like so you have an application, so like that application need to write some logs. Okay, it need to write some logs to somewhere. Okay, so your applications need to write the logs to somewhere, right? This particular logs. Okay, so this container have logs, cache files, right? Temporary files. Okay, so any databases it needs to connect. So how can this particular application to write to this particular any location? Because it needs to write this. We made this with this option. We made this file system as a completely read only. Okay, no write operations will be happened inside this file system, right? So how can we make, so for example, I just want to write these logs to somewhere for my host machine or somewhere, right? So how, for this cache, like where I can write. Okay, so for this, what you need to do? Okay, so what you need to do? Okay, so that's what we should do all these scenarios actually. We must test these all these scenarios. So like how can, like, so if this particular application want to write anything onto another system, okay, so how this particular read-only file system can perform, right? Because it is only do the read-only, it cannot do any write operations, right? So in this scenario, what you need to do? Okay, so what you need to do, so you have to use docker run. Okay, so docker run, and so once I exist, so the container should be run deleted, and then I can use read only. Okay, so it means ubuntu, okay, bash. So what it will do, so it will create um, the complete file system as read only, right? This create complete file system as read only. Okay, but what I want to do, so I want to write something into the application logs folder, right? So my application is generating some logs. That application logs need to be right in the for example in the logs folder. Okay, so the logs folder inside the container, it is having the logs folder. Okay, so my application, so inside this we have the logs, right? So we have the container is running. Okay, so we have the container is running. So our app is running inside the container. This app is writing the logs to some directory, for example logs directory. So since this file system entire file system is read only, this application cannot write anything to these logs, right? Because it is not writable. You can, if application need anything logs, it can read, but it cannot write to these logs, right? So but so in the real time the application needs to write to this particular logs. Okay, so in this scenario what you need to do, so you have to allow this app need to write logs to this particular logs directory. It means you need to give this particular write operation for this logs directory. So if there is any cache directory, so you need to give write access to this particular cache directory. You need to give write permission to those particular directories. So whatever the directories you need to write, need the access for the writable. So you must give the access. So here what you need to do, okay, so here what you need to do, so you have to give this permission. Okay, so if you have any cache, okay, so you need to give cache. Inside this cache container, there is a container folder like where your application will be writing the all the cache related stuff in this particular directory. Let me go inside this container. Okay, what it means, what it like so other than these logs folders, everything will be read only. It means these two directories, okay, so we'll be having the write access. So other than these two directories, okay, everything got the read only permissions, read only permissions. Okay, so the container, right? Like let me welcome. Okay, I'm just giving an example like logs. Okay, logs folder, inside that app.log. Okay, see, it is writing something in this container, right? Like, so let me open cat slash logs. Inside the Slack folder I have app.log. So I'm able to read and I'm able to write because the logs folder has the write permissions, right? This logs folder have the write permissions. Okay, so you said you have given only access for write. So why can't we test for the other like directories whether we are able to write um, uh, anything into that? Anything into that. So let me create one file, touch, and then I'm just going inside the root, and then here I'm creating the file.txt. Let's see what it will say. Let's see what it will say, right? So let me do that. See what it is saying. It is saying it is read only. It is saying it is read only. Okay, so hope you understand this read only, why it is needed, why it is needed. Okay, so this is what the read-only file system, how you make the your entire container file system to be read-only. Okay, this is one of the very important security um, thing which everyone need to follow.